Guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am watching a real horror story, which was a jeepney horror story and the world, and it was really true. It's called The Woman on the Bus. True horror stories. Oh, it just says true horror stories. But let's just start. The Woman on the Bus. This is so scary.
This happened when I was on my way to my grandmother's house. On that day, I tried to catch the jeepney because the other buses were already full at 12 a.m. I finally found a jeepney, and there were only a few people inside. There was a driver, a money collector who was hanging onto the outside of the vehicle, 2 girls, a few guys, and an old woman. We were on the road when we passed by a mental hospital. Then a lady with a hospital gown on was standing there, pointing her finger out, which meant she wanted a ride. She was bald and her face was pale white. The jeepney stopped next to her, and the inside of the car went silent. The streets were covered in fog and darkness, and the light of the jeepney was the only light source. At the time, I was texting my grandma and said that I was going to be late while glancing at the lady.
Oh my God.
However, before she stepped on the stairs of the jeepney, the driver abruptly jammed the accelerator and left her behind. I was confused. It seemed like everyone was too. When we looked over at the driver, he seemed to be so scared, but we didn't know the reason why. I asked him why he left the lady behind, and he replied with a trembling voice. He said, "She's not just a lady, ma'am." At that point, the driver looked at the rearview mirror, shut his mouth, and then increased the speed. When I followed his eyes towards the mirror, I saw it. The lady was running towards the jeepney with a weird pose and an abnormal speed. She was so fast that I couldn't see her face clearly, but her dress was visible. It was covered with blood. The collector, who was hanging outside, jumped inside and then yelled to the driver, "Faster! She's getting closer!" People inside of the jeepney were getting scared. I was the closest to the door, and out of nowhere saw the lady jump on the vehicle. She then slowly hung onto the door of the jeepney, and finally she lifted her face. She had bruises all over her face, and she was smiling at us with sharp teeth and big, deep black eyes. My heart almost stopped, and everybody in the jeepney screamed. I quickly hit her with my bag, and she tumbled down from the jeepney. However, the moment she got off, I saw her standing. She looked at me and then laughed like a demon. Not long after, the jeepney finally reached the station. Everyone hurried off the car. I got off and handed my payment to the guy. Then I went to the 7-Eleven nearby and bought some snacks to ease my nerves. I was at the counter thinking about what just happened, and then the cashier suddenly asked me, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I'll just say that I saw a crazy lady on the road when we were riding on the jeepney," I said, and then I couldn't believe his response. "I know her. She had cancer, and the moment she lost all of her hair, she went crazy, laughing all the time, hurting herself, and even threatening to kill people. That's why her family eventually moved her out to the mental hospital. But after a week, she tried to escape, got hit by a jeepney, and died," he said. I was shocked, and goosebumps were all over my body. I asked the cashier if he still remembered the plate number of the jeepney. "Well, for my privacy, I'm not going to mention the number," but after he told me, I thanked him, got my change, and looked for the jeepney I was on. The moment I found the jeepney again, I froze. The jeepney that I rode was the same one that hit and killed the lady.
Okay, that's... Watching another scary story, like... Okay, please... We're only watching 2, so this is the last one.
It was around 5:30 p.m. I was walking in the street to my dormitory since my home is far away from my school. There were only 3 to 5 people passing by that street at that time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
While walking,
That's only
I was
4.
texting my boyfriend, asking him if I could come over that night since I have a project to make and my laptop's being an ass. It won't turn on, so I was hoping I could borrow his laptop. And then, when I looked up, there was an old man walking towards me. The street was narrow, so I stopped and moved away to the side to make room for him when he did the same. I nervously laughed and moved to the other side, and he copied me again. This time, I felt a bit nervous. Excuse me, I muttered. I tried to get away from him, but he kept blocking my direction. Then he laughed and moved away. I felt relieved. I quickly walked past him, and then he stomped his feet behind me. I got startled, and then he laughed. I thought he was just a crazy old man. I told my boyfriend about it, and he asked me if I was okay, so I told him not to worry. Around 7 p.m., I was at the jeepney stop, waiting for a jeepney to arrive, because I was going to my boyfriend's apartment, since it was 45 minutes and 2 rides away. 30 or 45 minutes later, there was one jeepney with only 5 passengers. So I hopped in. One by one, the passengers got off the jeepney until I was the only one left. Drop me off by the terminal, please, I said. He didn't say a word, just kept on driving. When we finally got into the terminal, he didn't stop. Just drop me off here, please, I told him again. Then I saw his face in the rearview mirror. It was the crazy man from earlier. I panicked. He was looking at me, smiling. I immediately called my boyfriend, since we don't have 911 here. He wasn't picking up. I didn't know what to do. Should I jump off the Jeep? Then suddenly a group of friends bolted the Jeep and he stopped. I immediately got off and ran. I might have looked like a maniac to those teenagers, but I didn't care. I called my boyfriend again, who finally picked up. He had just got off from school, and I told him everything. He picked me up where I was, and since then, he never let me travel at night.
Wait, again? No!
Have you done ballet before? I used to be a stripper.
Okay, I don't... Okay, tough horror stories. Oh my god! Okay, you know what? Just gonna... Okay, the man on the road. Okay, I hope this is not...
There's a road that I always drive through for work day after day. Although it was a quiet place, I didn't pay much attention to it, as it has always a few cars on the road.
Okay, you know what? This
However,
is
something started to bother me at some point. There was a man standing on the same side of the road almost every day with no expression. Late at night or early daybreak, it hasn't been long since I noticed he was always in the same place in all weather. So one day, I talked to my colleague about the man, and he suddenly said, "He seemed like a very famous man around that place. But you know what? No matter where you see him, you will always see his face from the front. No one has literally seen his back or even his side. Moreover, there are, strangely, many accidents on that road. So everyone says that's a curse from that dude. For now, everyone just passes him on the road and ignores him." I suddenly became curious about him. That day on my way back home from work, I was driving on the road where the man stood. And the man was standing there as usual and looking straight at me. As I was passing the side of him, I turned my head to see him sideways. But he was already staring at me straight in his face. Now I passed the man and looked into the side mirror to see his back. But still, he was looking at me straight. It made me feel creepy enough.
Okay, never let.
After I arrived at home, another curiosity sprang up.
Okay.
So he kept staring at me, but I couldn't really see him moving. He definitely moved when I just took my eyes off for a moment. Then what happens if I keep staring at the man without taking my eyes off of him?
Wait, I had to stop.
The next day, I headed to the same place.
One day there was a cat, and it was literally looking at me for the whole time. Also at night, and I'm like, excuse me, shoo, shoo, shoo. I tried to scare it off, but still it's standing there. So yeah, I decided to pick him up, and he literally scratched me for no reason. Like, and I thought that cat was possessed by me, and I just decided to run and get something like a knife and scare him away for no reason. Oh, and he finally got away. Like, oh my god, that was a release. I was like, oh my god, finally it was a release. Finally, I thought I was getting killed by that ugly thing.
It was time to put the way I thought yesterday into practice. And he surely stood in the same places, staring straight at me. I began to keep my eyes on him from the moment I first saw him and watched him until the moment I passed by. And of course, when I didn't take my eyes off him, he didn't look back at me either. The side of the mystery man began to be seen little by little, and I noticed that it was no different from the other ordinary person. But I felt excited like a child who had just discovered the hidden treasure. Besides, it would be perfect if I see his backside last. I had already turned my head 180 degrees and looked back dangerously before I knew it. I couldn't see the back well, so I was trying to turn back, putting my hands off the steering wheel. Now the back of him was finally seen by my eyes. Being satisfied, I was about to exclaim, and at that moment, bang! Then I suddenly lost my mind. When I woke up again, I was lying in the hospital, and fortunately I was not seriously hurt though. What a stupid. Why did I do that? Was I possessed by something? While thinking about those things, a man in a police uniform knocked on the door of the room and came inside. Hi, I came here to hear what happened to you yesterday. So I frankly confessed that I had acted rashly to see the back of the man standing on the road and admitted that the accident had happened. I told him that I don't know why I suddenly thought so. Just then, the cop who was listening to me without saying anything said to me, and that one sentence that he had told me still remained in my head long after the incident. Since that day, I've been avoiding the road wherever I go to work or come back home. Shoot, that dude didn't take you this time.
On the hunt for new anime, Funimation has over 15,000 hours of new shows and classic hits.
Okay. Guys, like this video and make sure to subscribe it.
A few years back, I was a shift manager for a local big box pharmacy and convenience store.